Folks, BetOnline is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for betting on all of the madness. Even if your bracket is busted, BetOnline has more ways to stay in on the action with a free Sweet 16 bracket and live betting on every remaining tournament game. With the largest selection of odds on everything from college basketball to MLB, NHL, and MMA, BetOnline continues to be your number one sports betting source. From every Cinderella story to every hat trick, BetOnline is covered with odds, stats, and more for every game, every play, and every win. BetOnline, the game starts here. Enjoy the show. And I did not prepare the theme song correctly. Here it is. We're going to do some horns today. We're going to just ease into things because like a gentle breeze this week has come upon us. It's a very soothing week of Flyers hockey that we're about to talk about. All calm, all regular stuff that's happened. Nothing really that noteworthy to write home and talk about, in my opinion, Ryan Quigley. You know,
we had a nice Phil's win opening day.
Phil's win, and it started over again. I fucked up. I had it going, and I didn't know it was going to restart. I had it there. I had honestly, the perfect like groove in intro, and I fucked it up.
Horns got to stay.
I do like the horns.
I don't know why we left with the horns. The horns got to stay.
Because it all changed. Doing the pivot to video changed things for me.
But like it didn't, like I like what we just did there though. Like we just continued dancing and then, but we were talking at the same time. You know what I mean?
I'll consider it. I'll consider it. Yeah. But
I don't think this is up for consideration, Steve. I think this needs to happen.
I believe I am the executive producer of the show.
I know that Flyperbole is very much your brainchild, and it is the whole, like, it's your baby. I get that. But Steve, the horns. We need the horns.
I created the horns. I say if the horns stay or go. I'll consider it.
I like the horns. We can't just get rid of them. It's been weird not having them.
Fair enough. I do agree. It is better. Life is better with the horns, but I've also thought about remixing the entire thing. We will see what, that would require time and mental capacity. Yeah. Two things I don't have right now.
Yeah.
I don't have it all. That's just how it is. And you know who has a lot of free time right now? John Tortorella.
That's right. The poor guy. So actually, I'm wearing my Arizona Coyotes hat right now.
Oh, wow.
Because it is, this hat is actually pretty related to the topic of John Tortorella today. And,
is that right?
Would you like to know how, Steve?
How is that, Ryan Quigley?
Because both of them are dead. So Coyotes are dead.
Hockey dead, of course.
Hockey dead. So Coyotes are dead. John Tortorella is...
As far as we know, the best of our knowledge, John Tortorella is in the land of the living. I assume
he's still alive and breathing, which I hope so. Because I'm sure the guy... everything that everyone says about Torts as a person, thumbs up. Double thumbs up. Boom, boom. Like
the man loves dogs. How could he... horses, how could he be bad?
Cats. And here's the thing with Torts. He doesn't call them cats. He calls them kitties.
Meow.
Isn't that adorable?
It is adorable. He's an adorable man. Yeah. Unless you're, I don't know, Cam York.
or Bobby Brink.
Morgan Frost. Joel Farabee.
John Couturier.
Who was the guy from the Rangers that hated his guts and the Blue Jackets? Dubinsky?
Oh, yeah. Brandon Dubinsky.
There's a pretty long list of guys that he doesn't, they don't particularly get along with Tortsy. But I will say the John Tortorella experiment in Philadelphia, it did not disappoint as far as content goes. Blog content, podcast content, you name it, that man gave us the tangy tent. He gave us audio clips. He gave us quotes. He gave us glares on the bench, freakouts. The main thing that's a tragedy here is we never got to see playoff Torts, just like we never got to see playoff Risto and never will. But, it is what it is at this point. And
he's still on the team.
Yeah, but is he? He is, but,
yeah, he's on the team.
Is he? I don't know. Will he be on the team when the Flyers make the playoffs again? I don't think so.
I have no idea.
I don't think so.
No clue.
Well, it depends. Like, is he actually like got another debilitating injury that's going to keep them from trading him properly? Because I hate the Ristolainen mystery box, but I feel like that's a big conversation for another day.
Right. Well, another thing is, Torts is gone now, and he was the guy that came out ahead of the trade deadline saying, like, we can't get rid of Risto, and then they didn't. So maybe now that Torts is gone, maybe there would be that more of like an acceptance to trading Risto. So I don't know.
So that actually leads me to one of the big topics with this.
Yeah.
So getting into this, so just the nuts and bolts here. John Tortorella was fired Thursday morning. Mm-hmm. Big shocker to all of us. We were like, holy shit. Like, I got into work and I saw the Slack channel notification that Torts had been fired. And I was like, are you serious? Like, I couldn't believe it. So that was a shocker. And the other thing was Elliot Friedman had initially tweeted that Tortorella resigned, that Tortorella stepped down.
Yeah.
And then the Flyers put out the information that he was basically fired. Like, what was the exact verbiage? Relieved of his duties.
Relieved of his duties. Yeah.
So that's already fascinating that there is a difference of opinion there. Like, did he go in and have a conversation and they said, you're fired? He goes, I'm not fired, I quit. Like something, or like he quit and they said, you don't quit, you're fired. Like,
right.
What was it? I don't know. But that's fascinating in and of itself. Brad Shaw takes over as the interim friend of the show, Brad Shaw. So Flyperbole's interviewed a head coach of the Philadelphia Flyers. So that's a first.
Flyperbole's own Brad Shaw.
I got to repost that interview. That was a good one.
That was a really good one.
And rock that one. You, my friend, Ryan Quigley, rocking the interviews
at the carnival. At the Flyers Charities Carnival. That was awesome.
One day they'll invite us back. One day. Yeah. And I can horrify more Flyers executives with our friend the Rat.
We'll have to finesse our way in there one way or another.
Oh, so. I know how to finesse. That was really creepy. I don't know what that hand motion was, but I didn't do it. It didn't happen. But the thing that's interesting is this. It seems like there's a rift. It seems like there is a difference of opinion with Tortorella and Briere / /Jonesy as far as the direction of the club. And what's fascinating too is, a couple years ago when Hilferty took over, they were talking about these guys as the brain trust, the triumvirate. Yep. This trio of men will bring us into this new era of orange. And, well, it's not so new. I mean, it's different, but I wouldn't call it new. It's a disaster. But it's a disaster that is pointed in a direction, which is nice.
Right.
I know not everybody feels this way. I've seen comments kind of all over the place on the internet about this move and just the Flyers in general right now. But overall, I personally feel good about the direction of this organization and this franchise. I'm very happy they've sold at the deadline 2 years in a row because that's what they needed to do. And to be near the bottom of the standings this season, where they are right now, currently, as we are recording this on Friday evening, the Flyers sit at 28th of 32 in the league, so 5th worst. 67 points in 74 games played. The Sabres have 66 points in 71 games played, 3 games in hand.
Point percentage wise, the Flyers, if everything continues exactly the way that it is, they will have the 4th overall pick, which is really good.
That's really good. Yeah. And this, the Predators have a slight chance of maybe falling above the Flyers, falling above. Like, that's the thing. Very slight. I don't think it's going to happen, but the Sabres have 66 points in 71 games played. The Predators have 62 points in 72 games played. So there's a very, very slight chance that the Predators might end up above the Flyers. Probably not going to happen. It's likely 4 or 5 for the Flyers right now.
We are coming up on a huge weekend, Steve. Ooh. So on the 29th, Saturday, March 29th, tomorrow, at the time that we are recording this, the Flyers will be taking on the Buffalo Sabres. Big game, huge game. Loser of that game remains or takes over as worst team in the Eastern Conference. So Got to get that L tomorrow, Steve. Got to get that L. And your boy's going to be in the press conference for that game, so that's exciting.
Press box Quigs.
Your boy's also going to be in the press box for. Did I say conference?
You did, but let's just roll with it. We're good.
The box of the press. And then your boy's also going to be in the box of the press on Monday.
The box of the press.
The box of the press on Monday, March 31st, when they take on, guess who? The Nashville Predators.
Oh, wow.
So
how about that?
Two absolutely monumental games when it comes to the positioning of where the Flyers are picking. Are they going to be a top 5 pick? Are they going to be a top 4 pick? Could they be a top 3 pick in the NHL draft? Honestly, I don't think so, because now that Torts is gone, it does feel like this team has rejuvenated to a degree, but
we'll see though. I mean, they still have half an AHL lineup. So the first game they played was against the Montreal Canadiens post Torts, and they kicked ass in that game. They were down a man on purpose, which is something we're going to get into in a few minutes. Cam York was sitting on the bench, but didn't play a minute in that game, which is wild to talk about. We're going to talk about that shortly. But 𝙏𝙒𝙄𝙏𝙏𝙏𝙊 was freed of his shackles of Tortorella and went off with, it was a 3-point night for our boy Mike over there.
Yeah, 3-point night for Mike 𝙏𝙗𝙏𝙏𝙏, and then also 3-point night for captain Sean Couturier.
So. Oh man, and Sean Couturier stole one of 𝙏𝙗𝙏𝙏𝙏's goals. We almost got the Matt trick. Almost
He's been
happened.
doing that a lot. I feel like Sean Couturier has stolen several goals from 𝙏𝙗𝙏𝙏 this season.
That's stolen valor, in my opinion.
It really is. Straight to jail. But
straight to jail. But look, I've said this a couple times. I am going to enjoy the wins when they come as much as I want this team to tank. I'm going to enjoy the wins, and I'm specifically going to enjoy the wins when 𝙏𝙒𝙏𝙏𝙏𝙏 does well in them, because that's really what it's all about, is our boy 𝙏𝙒 just succeeding. And he looked awesome last night. And I just want to see more of that as the season goes on. But I'm hoping that it was an anomaly. I'm hoping it was just no Torts, let's move on. That said, interesting opportunity for Brad Shaw with this. We're now 8 games left in the season, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And we like Brad Shaw. We've spoken to him before. We like a lot of his philosophies on defense and the power kill and attacking. He is definitely an interesting name in the mix for the head coach moving forward. But before we get into Brad Shaw, before we get into the team post Tortorella, let's talk a little bit more about John Tortorella and essentially this move. Why now? What happened this week to cause this to happen? Because we did a podcast, so you were unavailable last week. So I sat down with some of our other fellow BSH people. We had a really good talk. I believe I was talking with, I'm sorry, I'm just trying to remember. We have so many great podcasters on there, and I'm just trying to remember all of the great people I talked to. But I know Thomas jumped on for a little bit. Gilbs jumped on, and I was talking with Jacob. And we had a good talk just about Tortorella and what his future is with the Flyers. And when we were talking about this Friday, we were like, they're not going to let go of him next season. There's a small chance he could go in the offseason, but we're likely looking at another season of John Tortorella, and then his contract's up, and then who knows what's up. We don't think he's going to be part of the franchise at that point, but who's to say? And then this happens. They got shellacked on Tuesday by the Toronto Maple Leafs, who that should happen, because the Maple Leafs are a really, really good hockey team, and the Flyers are a really, really bad hockey team without goaltending. It was the proper result, but Torts made some comments afterwards, and it was real, I think you should leave energy. I don't even want to be around anymore. You're all like, Torts, are you okay? Do you want any part of this moving forward? It really seemed like he was kind of just done with the franchise, and that accelerated in our minds, man, he might step down in the offseason. But again, we didn't think they would make this move with a few games left on the schedule. So what happened?
So I'm with you. So what I thought was going to happen was exactly what you were just kind of describing. I thought he was going to finish out the season, and I didn't think he was going to get fired. I didn't think that was really on the table for the exact reason that we were just talking about. It's this triumvirate of leadership. That's how they described it. So I didn't think that there would be a firing situation going on. I figured what I thought was going to happen was he was going to pull a Paul Maurice at the end of the season and say, listen, we finished horribly this year. I am stepping down. I'm resigning because I think my message has now worn thin. I think they need a new voice in the locker room. Like, I remember that's exactly what Paul Maurice said when he left Winnipeg. I figured that would be something that Tortorella would do, leaving Philly. Total opposite. And the reason why is because it turns out, Steve, that there was a bit of a kerfuffle, if you will, a spat, perhaps a brawl. Maybe that's a little bit. Maybe that's a little too far.
Well, we don't. The thing is, we don't know.
We don't know. We don't know what happened. So basically, Kevin Kurz of The Athletic tweeted on Friday. Today is in fact Friday. Told from a team source that, quote, it's fair to say something happened between Cam York and John Tortorella in Toronto that contributed to the coach's dismissal on Thursday morning. Was put to me that, quote, they probably both crossed the line.
Ooh, that's a spicy meatball right there, Quigley.
That is spicy. And it makes you wonder because, like, you know, Cam York, of course, against the Blackhawks was benched. Against Toronto was benched. And he played early in the game, made a horrible mistake on a goal, and then he never saw the ice again. And they did one of those kind of, NBC Sports Philly did one of those kind of funny, like very slow zoom ins on his like angry face as he's just like seething on the bench. So you could tell he was not happy. He was miserable. And I guess he had some words to say to John Tortorella about that. And I guess John Tortorella, being who he is, had some words to say back to him. And I don't know what happened from there, but it seems like there was some serious, it was a thing.
Some tension there a little bit. Yeah.
There,
nothing good happened is what we understand. There was an incident, and that incident led to two unusual things. Number one, the head coach being fired or stepping down or something with 9 games left in the season.
Crazy.
On a season where they're outright tanking. Like, they sold at the deadline. They truly don't. They want to end up in the bottom 5 so they can get a great pick and hopefully get a center, which I initially wanted to start going down some of the, potential guys they could be talking about in the draft. And given this Tortorella news, I don't think we're going to have time to get into that today. That's going to be a next week thing. But I want to start talking about those guys soon because that is the significant target at this point. That's the thing to think about is like, who can they get with that pick? Because there's some high-end talent at the top of the draft that's going to be really great to get.
Right.
But you don't think they're going to fire the coach, especially like he's doing a great job of them being shitty. Like they won like what, 1 game in like that whole stretch there, like that 10-game stretch.
It was awful. Yes. And so and also it doesn't help Torts that like not only did this blow up with Cam York happen, but he also after the game, like said a pretty insane thing. Like, so the full quote makes more sense to me than what people are just taking. Like the
people love to just take a snippet.
Yeah, they take the snippet out. But basically, the snippet of the quote was, "I'm not really." He basically, I don't have it in front of me, but he said basically, "I'm not really interested in coaching a team going like through this." That's like what the snippet was. But the full quote was more him saying like, I'm not really interested in learning how to coach a team that's going through a season like this, but I like have to, and I need to be better. Like, so like either way you cut it, it doesn't sound great, but like I understood what he was trying to say when you look at the whole quote.
Right. It makes sense.
You're like, wow, he's just quitting on the team. He wants to be fired. Like, it's, I'm sure the players, saw that, heard it, and then they're like, what the hell, man? And then, who knows? Maybe that's what caused it. Maybe Cam York, like somehow heard that like in Toronto. It wasn't far away. So like, maybe he caught wind of that and he was like, you're benching me and now you don't even care about the team, blah, blah, blah. Like, who knows what happened? I have no clue, but
I would love to know. Like,
I'm dying to know.
And here's the thing, I'll sign whatever you want me to sign to not talk about it publicly on the podcast. Like, I really don't, like, do I want to know if we're talking about on the podcast? Of course. Yeah. I am a Flyers podcaster, and this is one of the most interesting stories that's happened to this team in years at this point. Mm-hmm. But I would love to just know. Okay. I would love to just know.
It's going to come out somehow.
I thought what the true reason that 𝙏𝙗𝙆𝙏𝙏 didn't want to come here would come out at some point. That still hasn't come out. So, although it would be hilarious if now that Tortorella's out, he finally came out and said, it was Torts. It was Torts. He scares me. Yeah, he's really scary.
Yeah.
He is scary.
All 5'7" of John Tortorella.
He is the scariest 5'7" man. A horse kicked him in the face and he kept on going. You know, he's basically a tiny Terminator. There's no stopping him.
I'm like legit, like honored and proud that I never once got yelled at. Like that makes me feel good. Like there were times where I'd ask a question and he'd be like, you know, he would literally give a 1-word response, like not angry, but just like, like I remember one time there was like a questionable play, a questionable call on a goal that went like that did not go the Flyers' way. And I was like, Torts, what are your thoughts on this? And he was like, it's a goal. I'm just like, but for the most part, like he gave me like solid, in-depth insights. And that made me feel good that I didn't get just totally fucking nuked by Torts.
And that's the thing ultimately with the Tortorella era is like, he ended up giving us some great quotes. Mm-hmm. He was fun with the media. Like he was never abusive towards the media
except for a couple, but that may have been warranted. So
yeah. I forgot about that. But yeah, like there wasn't quite, who's that guy from the New York, Larry Brooks? Like there wasn't like a Larry Brooks here that he really like had his public enemy number one for him. Mm-hmm. So the thing, and before this season, I thought he had some success stories as far as like player development, like Travis Konecny. I think regardless, you can call that a success story.
That was a success.
I counted Cam York as a success story before the season. That is getting taken off the board. Cam York's had a pretty mid-season to start with, and then put into this incident that caused Torts to at least, if not get outright fired, at least it pushed him towards the door. Mm-hmm. And it caused Cam York to get benched for a game where he was not scratched. He was made to just sit on the bench, which is wild. Which Brad Shaw at this point, I know he's obviously probably friends with Tortorella. They were colleagues, right? He hired him to be on his coaching staff. Mm-hmm. Shaw has no reason that he has to do that at that point, unless it's something that like really warrants it. So it must have been pretty bad.
So to my understanding, it was, from what he described, Brad Shaw, it seems like it was a group decision between him, Danny Briere, Keith Jones to discipline him.
But have you ever seen discipline like this where they put somebody just on the bench and don't play? I've never seen that.
Here's the thing. So apparently what they would have done was just like, scratched him. But apparently you can't, like in the NHL, you can't willingly put yourself in an emergency situation where you have to like do an emergency call up or something like that. Like a player has to be hurt or something like that. So in order to have that emergency call up, he was not hurt. And for that reason, they couldn't just throw someone else in there. Like they had to like play him. And
I still find it wild.
It's crazy.
I still find it like
crazy. Yeah.
I've never seen anything like it.
He didn't even have a stick on the bench for a while, and then they gave him one. How crazy is that? You're sitting there looking like you're waiting for a bus. Like, what are you doing?
They just hand him a tablet. They hand him one of those like those Amazon Kids tablets, and like, have some screen time, buddy. He's just like tapping away on a game with his big hockey glove.
Yeah, he's playing like Fruit Ninja or Angry Birds on the bench. While the Flyers, while Matvei Michkov is like doing somersaults and scoring goals.
Matvei Michkov just being a boss. Oh, that 5-hole goal last night.
Beautiful.
Oh my God. Like I'm so okay. Tortorella, there's some success stories. There's obviously some things that didn't work out. And all right, we're in this situation at this point. How do we feel about not having him on this team moving forward? Because my initial reaction is a bit of, if not outright relief, at least like a little relief. Like, I really was getting tired of him specifically benching 𝙏𝙗𝙗, you know, riding 𝙏𝙗𝙗 really hard. Like, I do agree that he needed some tough love to adapt to the NHL game and kind of grow it, you know, mature a little bit into the game. But it got to the point of, I don't know, it was a little absurd as the year went on, especially though there was one, I forget exactly the game at this point, but he benched him for like the remainder of the first period at a certain point after he didn't like back check on a shift. And it's like, dude, I don't care, because I just want 𝙏𝙗𝙗 to score baller goals and just be an offensive dynamo. That's all I care about. And it was that point I'm like, what are we doing here? This is silly. He's never going to be, I don't want him to be Mark Stone. I want him to be Alex Ovechkin. I don't want to be Mark Stone.
You want him to be Matvei Michkov is what you want.
We got Mark Stone light already. His name is Tyson Forrester. Tyson Forrester can be Mark Stone. Let Matvei Michkov be a baller.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. So like, you know, my initial reaction to finding out the news was surprise, but also not non-surprise, if that makes sense, because
it makes total sense to me.
It did make sense based off of the comments. And I didn't think it was going to actually happen, but like, it did make sense. I just didn't think they were going to do it now. I thought that was interesting. What are my thoughts of, you know, the team going forward without him? Listen, I agree. I think something that always bothered me about Torts was his handling of certain players. So like the way he would jerk Morgan Frost around, and listen, Morgan Frost drove me crazy. The guy seems like an awesome person. He wasn't it as a hockey player. He wasn't. And like, I thought the time was right to move on from him. So I'm glad that the Flyers did. But the way that it just seemed like he targeted certain players. He targeted Morgan Frost. He targeted Matvei Michkov. He targeted Bobby Brink, Travis Sanheim. Like the way that he would, like, benching Travis Sanheim in his return to Calgary. Like, what's that about? Benching Bobby Brink in his first game in Minnesota as a fly. Like what are we doing that?
He would do those spiteful ones because there was Brink in Minnesota, and he also did Sanheim in Calgary.
Yeah. Like that is not healthy. That is not, like, you know what you're doing. And that's bullshit. That is just straight up bullshit to do that. So that I didn't appreciate at all. But like, also on the other side of things, I do genuinely think that he's a good coach. And I do genuinely believe that he does care about the players. But the way the way he goes about disciplining players and like keeping everyone in line is just totally, like, it's insane. Sometimes it is.
Oh, it is. No, I agree completely. But I was sick of it.
You know what, though? Like in this, and I was going to ask you this a little bit earlier. You brought up success stories. And I'm thinking back, looking at, you know, who are some of his success stories. The two guys we just talked about, Travis Sanheim is playing the best hockey of his career. And now, granted, he's not like putting up big, you know, statistical numbers or anything like that, but he's playing very well. He's clearly the Flyers' number one defenseman, even though should he be a number one defenseman? No, he shouldn't be, but he's playing very, very well for the most part. Bobby Brink has been rock solid this season. Rock solid. After last year, his rookie year, like there were a lot of growing pains, and Torts admitted it. Like Bobby Brink drove him crazy, and he even said this year, like, I rode Bobby Brink really hard. And you know, that night, I remember he had like that 2-goal night a couple of weeks ago. Basically, he was like, yeah, man, I've been riding him hard, and he's been playing so well, period. Not just scoring. I know we're talking about the scoring tonight, but like he's been playing well, period, all season. And like, I think you have to be impressed with how Travis Sanheim and Bobby Brink have played. And it's just interesting that those are the two guys those were two of the guys that Torts seemed to target. This is not me saying that Torts targeting them was the right move, and then it got them to, it lit a fire under their ass, and then they started playing well. That's not what I'm saying at all. But what I am saying is that like there are success stories with Torts, and I think those are two guys who you can look at and be like, yeah, I think they're playing the best hockey of their careers, and I don't think it's a coincidence that it's coming while they're under the tutelage of John Tortorella.
No, it definitely wasn't all bad. Like there were some good things. And I think for the most part, like his development of 𝙏𝙗𝙗 has worked out pretty well, but there are some exceptions, and it was nice to see him unleashed a little bit last night.
Yeah.
Like it really was like, I felt like, and part of that's probably also Montreal's not that great. Montreal's a pretty bad team. They're in the lower half of the league, right? But like, Mish really had his way with them in that game, and it was cool to see. So I am excited to see somebody with a more modern style come in here, more modern sensibility, maybe not focus. Like I hated seeing 𝙏𝙗𝙗's shot blocking. Like I thought that was insane. I never want to see him block a shot for the rest of my life. Like,
and you know what? That's another thing that we actually picked up on when we spoke with Bradshaw on Flyperbole a couple years ago at the Flyers Carnival. Like, I remember we were talking to him about the penalty kill and how good the Flyers penalty kill was. And basically he was talking about like, listen, we don't want Owen Tippett out there blocking shots. Like that's not what we want. We want him scoring goals. But then you look at Torts and listen, I feel like he would to a degree agree with that, but we're still seeing Matvei Michkov out there blocking shots. And like, listen, we're going to see all players out there blocking shots. If they're in position, like, unless you're just, a total diva, chances are you're going to be getting down to block a shot. But like, it seemed like he wanted Michkov to do a bit of like, quite a bit of that. Not to prioritize that or anything, but like, don't have your star player getting in the lane of a 95-mile-an-hour slapper from the point. Like there's no reason. Let him cherry pick. Like let your offensive guys be offensive guys. Don't try and mold, someone into something that they're not. It doesn't work that way.
It doesn't work that way. And I'm glad. Well, I don't know this is going to be the case, but like it seemed like he had a big emphasis on Michkov's defensive play. And again, I truly don't care about his defense at all. There are plenty of other guys play defense on this team, and he's not the one I'm looking to. Now, one of the interesting things I saw some interesting quotes from like Charlie O'Connor over at PHLY talking about like, kind of some of the philosophical differences between Briere and Tortorella. And it seemed like last year Tortorella was largely okay, at least publicly, with the Flyers sell moves. I mean, he couldn't have been happy from a competition standpoint to see Sean Walker get traded, and Briere even name checked that during the press conference, the Sean Walker trade. So maybe it was something he had umbrage with behind closed doors, but we all agreed at the time and still agree today, you're getting a first round pick for Sean Walker, who already was a guy who worked out better than you thought from a good trade. Then you take that.
He was a throw-in in that trade.
He was throwing. You take that and you run with it. And I think the same thing holds true for Scott Laughton this year, And it's funny because Torts' public comments about Scott Laughton sounded like he was fine with it. Like he said, like, you got to make hard decisions. I forget the exact quote, but it basically sounded like Tortorella was fine with trading Scott Laughton. But what it sounds like today is he was not fine with it. And we all saw the effect it had. That locker room was gutted after they sold. Like they were playing okay. And sometimes even good hockey, and then they were just the worst team in history after that. Like they were just in tatters after that. So it seems like Tortorella had some problems with the trades they made at the deadline. Trading Scott Laughton, I'm sure Kuzmenko also played a factor. He probably was not sad to see Foster Farabee go because of all his issues with Mr. Toilet Seat and everything. But as far as like, he probably really enjoyed Kuzmenko for those few games because Kuzmenko was being, spicy offensively. He was doing good stuff. Yeah. But like not having any tools, not having any weapons, being stuck with half an AHL roster did not seem to rub him the right way. And I understand the frustration from being a largely successful NHL coach in your career and then being given nothing to work with. And like nobody wants to miss the playoffs. Like that's the thing about tanking is like none of the guys on the team want to tank.
Yeah.
Like your tank strategy is entirely dependent on like just picking out either bad players or just not supplying like good enough players. Never do you have athletes on the court or I'm saying the court because I'm thinking of the Sixers when I think of the tank, but on the ice that actively want to play bad. Like these guys aren't going out there saying, well, if I play like shit tonight, like 𝙏𝙗𝙗 in particular, right? Like 𝙏𝙗𝙗 is fiery as hell. Konechny, you got some fiery guys on this team that hate losing. And Tortorella is a fiery guy who hates losing. So it's frustrating, but also why couldn't you suck it up for like 2 more weeks and then, say to them in the offseason, like, all right, listen, I can't do this for another year if you're not going to supply me with anything. So there's so many questions I have on this firing at this point. Like, I really do wish everything had waited, but at the same time, like, I ain't missing him that much.
It certainly sounds like they would have waited that couple weeks to have that conversation until that Cam York thing happened. And it seems like that was the moment where they're like, okay, we got to do something now.
And I'm sure at this point, like, you're seeing a lack of respect from the locker room if Cam York's willing to do whatever the hell he did.
Yeah. I mean, you have to assume it's not just him. And like, I heard Charlie O'Connor, PHLY, say like, not a lot of people loved Torts in that locker room. I feel like that,
I'm shocked.
Right. Yeah. And like, listen, it's so interesting.
Beloved NHL coach, John Tortorella.
Well, we hear it all the time. We do hear about these players who do love Torts. And I wonder, like, I don't know what it was like. I don't know if it was like pure hatred from like the majority of the team in the locker room, or if it was like a select few guys, like, I don't know. And then everyone else was just indifferent. They didn't really care. They were just like kind of tired of it. They didn't dislike him, but they were just tired of his shit. Like, I don't know. I don't know what that dynamic was like. Cause I'm not like, I'm in the locker room after games, but I'm not like in the locker room.
Right. There's the locker room. Then there's the like, locker room.
Yeah. Then there's like the everyday, like I'm not in there every day. So like, it's hard to kind of gauge what the vibe is like, but it's interesting. And you could tell that like that Blackhawks game to me was an eye opener. And then to see how they played in Toronto also, I was like, something's going on here. Like that doesn't happen 2 nights in a row. And I don't know. It something seemed really fishy.
Oh, for sure. Well, because they play the Stars game that Saturday, and the Stars game almost is a complete fiasco because it starts off, Fedotov doing his thing again, right? And they pull him early, gets the hook nice and early. And Eriksson comes in, stabilizes the game, plays one of his better games in the second half of the season, and they take that to OT and lose. Lose 9 seconds in OT, right? I remember that one well because I worked post-game for that one. Yeah. But then Sunday they come out in a game that we expected them to win that game because they played the Stars hard. They played a couple other teams hard that week, and they are a better team than Chicago. Chicago is easily the second worst team in the league this year. They are horrible, horrible hockey team. And the Flyers played like dog shit against them. They played absolutely
That was one
horrible.
of their worst. One of their worst. I mean, I think that was their worst performance of the year.
It has to be. Like they let up 7 goals to the Chicago Blackhawks.
7 goals in back-to-back games.
The Chicago Blackhawks again are easily the second worst team in the league. They are just pathetic, just a shell of a hockey team, and the Flyers easily should have beaten them. It was just so bad, and it was almost like I felt like they were giving Patrick Maroon goals in that game. It's like how bad it was.
It was crazy.
Like, the big rig's retiring. We got to give him some goals.
Big rig. I mean, good for him. He always turns it on against the Flyers. So
I mean, the team that drafted him that he never got to play for.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, so Tortsy's out. It's crazy to think about, and I'll miss the quotes, but that's pretty much it. So let's think about the future. So we're going to get 8 more games of Bradshaw to see what he's got. I really like Bradshaw. I'd like to see him stick around regardless, but I don't know. I think people have questions about choosing him as like a head coach. I wouldn't mind if you don't have the right name available for the offseason. Like, let's say like Mike Sullivan isn't available or something. Mike Sullivan's available. Mike Sullivan's no brainer for me.
Yeah, you gotta go after Mike Sullivan. I
like
mean,
the Penguins should sign him to a lifetime contract just so he can't coach Matvei Michkov. But
now here's something to think about though. Mike Sullivan is very much one of Torts' guys.
That's true. That's true.
Like I do wonder, like what happens there? Like if he does become available and the Flyers approach him and they say, "Hey, how would you like to interview for a Flyers gig?" I wonder if he'd be like, "Hey, Torts, like what do you think of this?" And I wonder what Torts would say. Knowing Torts, it does sound like it was. It doesn't sound like he has anything against like Danny and Keith Jones. Yeah, like it doesn't sound like it sounds like they had disagreements, but it doesn't sound like there's ill will or anything like that.
Yeah, and I think he kind of just reached the end of his rope with like the rebuild, and like he just kind of got sick of it. And I think he also knew that like once the team was ready to compete again, he wasn't going to be the head coach anyway. So he's kind of like, let's just, this isn't working for either of us. You want to go? All right, let's go. But who knows? I wish I knew more details. I need the insider track on this so bad, but I would love Sullivan. That's it. If somebody isn't available like him and you can't we've heard some college names getting thrown around. We've heard some really interesting names. I would be willing to kind of do what the Phillies did with Rob Thompson and give Bradshaw like maybe a year if he'd be down for that to like show us what he's got, give him like a little tryout year. I like him and I like a lot of what he's done with the team.
Yes. I would not be opposed to Bradshaw being the head coach for next season in full. Certainly, because I do think he has a good hockey mind. I do think he has the right approach to the game. I mean, we've seen what he's done with some of these defensemen. Like he's turning Jamie Drysdale around right in front of our eyes. Jamie Drysdale is looking so much better than what he did even a couple months ago. Look at Rasmus Ristolainen. He's changed Rasmus Ristolainen's life. Literally, he's changed his life.
I mean, he's a different player than he was when Chuck Fletcher traded big time assets for him a few years back.
Yeah. Yeah. So I don't know. I would love to see him stick around. I think that would be great. But also, like, again, if Mike Sullivan's out there, you have to pursue.
The way he turned around the Penguins, because it felt like the Penguins before Sullivan took over, like they were at the end of their rope. Like it felt like the Penguins were cooked then. And Sullivan has just gotten so many good years out of them since then. Like I think that team might be worse than the Flyers this season easily if Sullivan doesn't do everything he does for that team. Like I really respect him as a head coach.
Yeah, no, me too. He's a very, very good coach. And, I know there are there's a few other names that people are throwing around. Like I know that Pierre LeBrun on TSN, he kind of hinted today that perhaps Rick Tocchet, because his contract is up at the end of the season. All roads always lead back to Rick Tocchet, Steve.
I wish I had the Tocchet jersey in back of me right now. I don't know why I put it upstairs. I would just bust it out right now. That's not an endorsement though. It's just a cool jersey.
Yeah. We were having this exact same conversation a couple of years ago before the Flyers hired Torts.
Oh, I remember.
Tocchet was available. And now guess what? He's available again. And the Flyers, once again, need a new head coach. And so it makes you wonder, like, are they going to do the stereotypical, predictable Flyers thing and just bring back the tough former Flyer to be the head coach of the team? Like, is that what they're going to do? First things first, we need him to actually leave Vancouver, because apparently there have been talks between him and the Canucks to figure out, is he going to come back another year? And he says that he wants to come back another year to Vancouver, but how true is that? And how much how's that all going to work? So,
but also, do we even want him? Like,
and that's the thing. Yeah.
Like, I've heard a lot of apprehension from my fellow Flyers fans on that, my fellow Flyers bloggers and everything. And also just, it feels like Vancouver's taken a big step back this year after being awesome last year. Mm-hmm. And I also worry about a head coach that can't find a way to smooth things over between JT Miller and Elias Pettersson.
I worry about his locker room management.
Yeah. You've got two big time centers who are having JT Miller revitalized his career in Vancouver. You know, I thought JT Miller was a fine hockey player. He's putting up 100 plus point seasons in Vancouver. I didn't know he was capable of doing that. He was unbelievable there. And they couldn't figure out a way to make it work between Pettersson and Miller. So they had to trade Miller to the Rangers. Like that screams bad locker room management to me. I don't think I want any part of that. I also am so tired of the guys who have been around the block with multiple teams, especially now that we've been through 2 consecutive coaches like that. Because we had Hackstall. Again, say what you will about Hackstall. It was something new. They tried it for the first time in Flyers history. They tried something new, or at least since Fred Shero, because Fred Shero was new and that was great. But like they tried something new, right? And I admired that. It lasted a year longer than it should have, but whatever. They tried it. And I do understand the swing to Alain Vigneault after that, get an established hand at the wheel, really try to make a push. It almost worked. And then, you know, pandemic hit.
COVID derailed everything.
Yeah. And then Vigneault just could not, he lost that locker room entirely and it was a disaster. And then Tortorella has obviously been around the block a lot. It was a controversial hire when it happened. You know, when the Flyers initially signed Tortorella, people were like, Torts? Really?
I didn't think it was bad. I really didn't think it was a bad hire because I do think that they did need to set that standard. I mean, they created that goddamn series. The standard.
Oh yeah, set the standard. The new era of orange.
Is the standard dead? Do they have to rename the series on YouTube?
Like, the standard dead, baby. R.I.P.D.
But like they did need to fix the culture of the team because it was broken. Very much so. Like they really, really needed to reshape what the Flyers are, you know, what it's like in the Flyers locker room, what the work ethic of the team is like. And I do think Torts helped a lot with that. You know, it didn't end up, you know, it didn't result in a ton of wins, but like, I truly do think listen, it comes down to talent. You got to have the talent to be a good hockey team. The Flyers just don't have a ton of talent right now. You got Michkov, you got Konechny. There's not much beyond that, but like, you know, I do think he left some positive, aspects behind when he, you know, after he got fired. I don't think it was all for nothing when they hired Torts. So
no, I agree with that. I think there are some success stories for sure. But just looking at the other coaches available. So we mentioned Shaw, we mentioned Tocchet, we mentioned Sullivan. We have a nice article up from Ryan Gilbert at Broad Street Hockey listing some of the potential candidates that could be out there, top 5. So go check that out. One of the ones listed is somebody I'm not overly familiar about, but I've heard some enthusiasm over. That's David Carl, who is the University of Denver's coach. And he's led the U.S. World Junior squad to back-to-back championships, and he's young as shit. He's younger than me. He's 35. He's 35 years old. So he's a young guy, which is going to be, it would be interesting to pull him into an NHL locker room. But what I do like, and again, don't let the Hackstall experience taint you, okay? Just because one college coach doesn't work out doesn't mean that's always going to be the case. And do you really want another NHL retread? Do you want another one of these guys that's just coached every team in the league and been mid for every one of them? I don't think so. So I would love if he wanted to make the leap to the NHL to give a guy like that a shot. Is it risky? Yeah, but you got to take some damn risks if you want to try and win that cup.
Yeah, and that's kind of the thing. I do feel like there will be some apprehension, not only from fans, but the Flyers. I do think the Flyers might look at David Carl and they'll be like, he's a college coach. Like, you know, we did try this before. Now, granted, that was a different management.
A different era of Orange.
Yeah, it was a different era of Orange. So, like, maybe they would be more willing to try it this time. But here's the difference between David Carl and Dave Hackstall. Dave Hackstall didn't win a goddamn thing in college.
That's true.
His teams were consistently good. They didn't win a goddamn thing.
Like Chip Kelly.
Exactly. David Carl's teams are winning no matter what, whether it's World Juniors, whether it's college, it doesn't matter. He is a winner. He wins everywhere. It's like Jalen Hurts.
Well, and there's something to be said about guys like that, because
I can't believe I just compared David Carl to Jalen Hurts.
Oh, two guys that are exactly the same. Let me tell you.
What's the difference?
Well, but what I always think about with that is I think about Mike Richards, and Jeff Carter.
Mhm.
One of the big reasons why people made arguments against trading Richards and Carter was those dudes were friggin' winners at every level before that. Okay. They won in juniors. They won at the AHL level together. And of course they ended up winning together with the Kings. Like, they were damn winners, and they might've been hard partiers and everything. You know, we all know Jeff Carl loved his sea isle. We've heard some infamous Temple party stories and Old City party stories about those guys, but those dudes won. They were damn good hockey players, and they were winners. So there is definitely something to be said about the winner angle. I know that's, for a lot of people, that's bullshitty intangibles right there, but like, there is something to be said about it. And like, we just saw it with Jalen Hurts. Like, the dude just won. Like, yeah, he wasn't the best in the game, right? He's not, you cannot objectively say that he's the best quarterback in the NFL, but the man's won a shit ton of games, and he just won the biggest game.
Right. You want to know another reason why I kind of like the idea of David Carl? Not just because, I mean, he's won at everything he's done, whether it's college, whether it's World Juniors. You know, we'd have a little bit of a reunion if the Flyers were to bring in David Carl as their next head coach. He would be reunited with the one Bobby Brink, who he won a national title with at the University of Denver just a couple of years ago.
Hello, Bobby.
Bobby Brink was one of his top players. I think that would be a really, really interesting storyline to watch, just to kind of see them back together. And I don't know. I think that'd be kind of fun. So
that would be fun. Yeah.
Silly reason. That's a silly reason to want a head coach, but I think it'd be cool. So
no, I like some familiarity for sure. And having those American, you know, the American player to play with them, you know, like that's always a nice thing to have. And I love how Bobby Brink's played a lot for this season too. I really think he's got a nice future with this team right now, because again, say whatever you will about what Briere has done this season, he's changed the Flyers. The Flyers are not going to be the same team at the start of next season that they were at the start of this season. There's just no doubt about that. Okay. And there are guys who have evolved. You know, I would have liked to see more from Tyson Forrester. Matvei Michkov's going to be a different guy next year. I think he's going to be an animal next year. He's going to be a Tasmanian devil. I can't wait. Bobby Brink's going to be a different guy. Bobby Brink could be a really valuable part of this team moving forward, you know, and especially if you can get some centers in there. If Jet Luchenko comes up, if you can draft one of these centers in the upcoming draft, like Misa or something like that, that would be unbelievable.
Oh God, don't tease me like that, Steve.
There's a chance.
If they can get Michael Misa, that is big.
Yeah. I mean, and the thing is, they're in range now. They're at the bottom and they get more lottery balls the lower they go. So be limbo champs, boys. Mm-hmm. And it might be tough because I think they do feel a little rejuvenated. I think they feel a little pep in their step. And I think they feel a little bit of like prove them wrong at this point. And they do have some lousy teams coming up that they need to lose to. Yeah. But we'll see what happens there. But you know, here's the thing, regardless of what the Flyers do over these last 8 games, they are going to finish near the bottom of the standings. Okay. They're going to get a good draft pick. Whether they're in that top 5, that remains to be seen. We're hoping they do, because there's a lot of talent in that top 5. The draft outside of that top 5, that's a little bit more like, okay, we'll see. That top 5, there is some great hockey talent to be found there. So we would like to see them down there. One guy I want to mention, we've been talking about Torts for 53 minutes now. One more coach I want to mention. I want to talk about one more player and his long-term outlook for this team. And then I briefly want to talk about this guy that they just signed as an undrafted free agent. We're going to have a lot to talk about in the coming weeks. I had a whole sheet lined up for today that Tortorella just nuked. Okay.
Yeah.
That was how it was. So first I want to talk about, Jay Woodcroft was the other name I saw mentioned for a potential coach. Any strong feelings on Woodcroft as a potential Philadelphia Flyers coach?
He doesn't blow me away. But wouldn't hate it, you know, if they brought him in. I do think he did a decent enough job in Edmonton.
Face needs a beard.
Yeah, he's got an interesting face.
As a face needs a beard. Grow a beard, Jay Woodcroft, and you might be in.
But I don't have any strong opinions of him. I'll say that. He's certainly not at the top of my list. I would much rather have a Mike Sullivan, a David Carl.
Sullivan's such a no-brainer for me if he's around.
It's not even close.
Yeah,
you got to go after it if he's there. So
that's like the one established quote unquote retread guy that's like, yeah, no, sign me up, you son of a bitch, I'm in.
No, he's just a great coach.
Yeah, he's a great coach. So, okay. Now, the one player on the Flyers roster that I think his future is now very much in doubt, where it used to be, yeah, of course he's in the plans long term, is Cam York. Okay. And I think if you talk to me at the beginning of the season, I would say no doubt about it, Cam York is in this defense for years to come, key part of it, right? And now having a pretty mediocre season and this incident with Tortorella showing some maturity issues potentially, how are we feeling about the long-term outlook for Yam Cork with the Philadelphia Flyers?
So I haven't been crazy about Cam York's long-term future for a while now. But I do kind of wonder, like, does his long-term future change now that Torts is gone? Because granted, I know it's not a good look. That seems like maybe there is a maturity issue. Like him and Torts went after each other and they went at it and all that. But it sure seems like Torts, he went after Cam York. He kind of had it out for him. So now that that's not the situation anymore, now that Torts is gone, I'm curious. I would love to see how Cam York responds these next 8 games. If he comes out and he plays well these next 8 games, I do wonder, like, was this a Torts thing? Was Torts did he just lose respect for Torts and he just didn't want to play for him anymore? Which granted, again, not exactly a mature thing to do, but I don't know. It makes you want to, like, I'm not ready.
He's an early 20s guy,
Yeah.
Like,
I'm not ready to say that the Flyers have given up on Cam York yet.
Yeah. Well, and the thing is also, like, Tortorella is the adult in the room, right? Like, he's an old established head coach. You have to be the adult in this situation. So, there's a reason he was fired and Cam York wasn't just like demoted and sent to like Siberia, right? Like, there is a reason to what happened, but it does make you wonder. I mean, he's got a contract coming up, his RFA contract, and what kind of commitment do the Flyers want to make to him? And this is the thing, with the draft coming up, there's some big decisions to be made. You got to think about Risto, potentially Cam York. And you mentioned Cam York when we talked before the trade deadline as a potential dark horse to be traded.
Yeah. Yeah. Like he always has struck me as a dark horse trade candidate. And that's not to say that he's a bad player. Like, he hasn't been playing well for a good portion of the season, but like, he's not a bad player. But I do think that he's kind of disappointed a little bit. I think the Flyers were hoping that he'd be more than what he has turned out to be. And
he's definitely in my top, like, 3 disappointing Flyers of the season, maybe 5. I don't know. There's a lot of disappointment to be had.
Yeah.
Like, if I had to rank them offhand, like, it would probably be Ersson, probably Owen Tippett, and Cam York.
Yeah. Yeah. I would say so. But listen, like, he's certainly not untouchable. That's for sure. Like,
there's only one untouchable guy on this team. His name's Matvei Michkov.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, even last year, like last summer, before Konechny got his contract, I love Konechny. I would have traded his ass. I would have gotten him out of the town. Because, like, listen, I love Travis Konechny, but I think for the betterment of the team, you got to try and get whatever you can. You just got to, if you're really going to do this rebuild, granted, that's a whole tear it down, like, obvious tank situation. But
sure. That extends the rebuild by, like, that moving Konechny last year extends the rebuild by at least a couple more years.
Yeah.
Because the way I see it, you make a couple moves on this team, you might be in playoff contention next year, right? You can make definitely a few moves. You shore up center, maybe you make a move in goaltending to split the load with Ersson. Like, you could, like, potentially make the playoffs next year. And then I think the plan, which we all agree with at this point, is like 2026. It's the time to strike. Like, that's the time to, like, really build this team up and make a push for it. Michov's going to be nice and, like, matured at this point and, like, established in the league, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But having Konechny in there keeps that timeline there. if you trade Konechny away, 𝙏𝙗𝙗's your number one scorer this season, right? And his point total is really nice for a 20-year-old, but it's not nice for a number one scorer on a team.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, I agree. Like, and listen, like next year, who knows what 𝙏𝙗𝙗's going to look like, right? Like he could end up like, I'm not even going to throw it out there.
No, don't throw it out there. Do not.
Yeah. But like
the universe wants
what we've seen from Matvei 𝙏𝙗𝙗 as a rookie is crazy. Like really, 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 really goddamn impressive.
Best rookie season for the Flyers since Simon Gagne.
Yeah.
Actually, it's probably the best since Michael Renberg at this point. Because he's over Gagne's point total.
Yeah, and this is with not a ton of ice time either. Like he got benched, he got scratched. Like, I mean, you know, like it makes you wonder. And also the power play is hilariously bad. And so he's had really not a ton of, benefit of that. So,
well, and think about how many times he just puts passes out there that guys have no idea what to do with. Like he just puts them out there and the guys are like, just no clue. He's got 54 points in 72 games played at this point, 22 goals, 32 assists. He really likes his twos in there. And he's just been a joy to watch every night. So I'm very excited to see what he brings to the table next season. But yeah, you've got an exciting opportunity next season. And I really am intrigued to see what they're going to have coaching wise. And stay tuned, folks. We're in for a ride. You know, that's the Flyers news that's going to be coming out over the next few weeks. It's going to be really interesting to follow. Last thing I wanted to mention before we sign off, because we're at the hour mark already. It just flew by.
Crazy.
But the Flyers signed an undrafted free agent today. And also they've made a couple interesting Phantoms moves. So I just kind of want to talk about briefly a little bit of those like youth movement things there. So they signed, weird name, Carson Dorwart, who is an undrafted free agent forward from Michigan State, 6'1", 194. What I was told is he could play for the Flyers or the Phantoms. Have you heard anything about this guy before today?
I think I heard about him for the first time a couple days ago. Excuse me.
I mean, anymore, the days feel like years.
I know. I don't know much about this man. He is now in what? Let's see. I'm just kind of going through his numbers here. He is in his third NCAA season, 31 points in 35 games. A lot of people seem to be excited about this. I just want to kind of caution everyone that just because someone is a good college hockey player does not necessarily mean that they are going to be very, very, very good NHL players.
Mike Vecchione, everybody.
Steve, you took the words out of my mouth. Do you remember Mike Vecchione a couple years ago? He was at Union College in 38 games, 63 points, 29 goals in 38 games. And then he joined the Flyers and he played a grand total of 2 games as a Flyer.
He's made a very nice AHL career for himself.
Really good AHL player. Really, really good. But NHL, not at all. So people are excited about Carson Dorwart. I'm not one of those people. I need to see him play. I would be flat out lying if I said that I've seen a single second of him playing hockey. So I need to
I'll be honest. I'm happy to see anybody different play hockey right now. I've been happy to see Jacob Pelletier get minutes now that Tortorella's not in there anymore, which, by the way, another one of the philosophical differences between the front office and Tortorella was they acquired Pelletier, and it seemed like he had no interest in playing that guy at all.
Yeah, crazy. Because everyone said, oh, this is a Torts guy. And then it was like, no, he's not. So
we thought Pelletier would be the Torts guy and Kuzmenko would be the guy he hated. And it was like the other way around.
It was interesting. Yeah. But
it sure was.
Yeah. So Carson Dorwart, we'll see what he is. I have not an inkling of an idea, and I'm not going to sit here pretending that I do know what he is and what he will be. So, but what I will say is proceed with caution. College players aren't always what you think. Look at what's his name? Kid on the Rangers. Jimmy Vesey. Everyone thought 𝙏𝙒𝙎𝙏𝙏𝙏𝙏 was going to be this, incredible player. He's a fourth liner, like an average fourth liner, maybe. So
it is a good hockey name, though. Jimmy 𝙏𝙎 is like a top-notch hockey name.
It's an all right name.
Jimmy 𝙏𝙎. Like, come on. Like, I think it rolls off the tongue. Anything, I don't know, anything with like a Jimmy or something like that just rolls off the tongue. So the other thing I just wanted to briefly mention, 𝙏𝙤𝙏𝙏𝙏𝙏 has been freed from his junior hockey prison and is now going to be playing for your Lehigh Valley Phantoms. I had to remember what the hell they were called. And he is projected currently on the second line for the Phantoms, playing with Wilson and Gendron. So Γκρεμπένκιν, by the way, has been pretty fun with the Phantoms. 3 points in 4 games. Yeah.
He's, of all the Flyers prospects right now, like I'm talking like AHL, like Γκρεμπένκин's my number one guy who I'm like most excited about. So really big Γκρεμπένκin fan.
Oh, we're all Greb heads over here. We love the Grebs. Oh, yeah. And what he's done, just being a big body and standing by the goal and like screening the goaltender. And I want that.
It's lovely. It's delightful. I need more of that on the Flyers, especially on the power play.
What a refreshing change of pace to have a guy who can play on the power play. So I'm excited to, Γκρεμπένκин's been doing some cool stuff in the minors, and I'm really excited to see what Jet can do playing at the AHL level.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm also tempering my expectations with Jet. I know everyone is freaking out in the offseason because he looked good in preseason and everything, which he did. But, when it came time for the regular season, it caught up to him a little bit, and he's still really young. So please, for the love of God, don't go into this, the home stretch of this AHL season hoping that 𝙏𝙤𝙏𝙏𝙏 is going to be some sort of savior and he's going to be a star. Please don't do that. He's
just try to enjoy what he's doing. Like, try to, watch his game and see the potential, because we desperately need centers for the future here. And
we're putting a lot of pressure on this kid. Like,
that's another reason.
People are putting a lot on 𝙏𝙤𝙏𝙏𝙏, and it really bothers me. Like, I don't think he's going to be the player that a lot of people are like telling themselves that he's going to be. I really don't. And that's not to say he's going to be a bad player. I think he'll be a good NHL player one day, but I don't think he's going to get there immediately. And I feel like people are just getting way too ahead of themselves right now. So chill out.
Okay. I was just going to say I'm excited for him just because, like, I think he's got a good head on his shoulders there. I'm excited to see what he can do. He's 19 years old, like, he's a young guy.
Be excited for 𝙏𝙤𝙏𝙏𝙏, but don't just don't have expectations that are sky high is what I'm saying. And I'm not talking to you, Steve. I'm talking to the psychopaths.
Don't get me started on the psychopaths. I don't even want to start on the psychopaths. Like, I could do a whole podcast just on the psychopaths. But I'm excited to see what Jet can do at this level. Well, that's part of the reason I also would like them to bring in like an established guy in the next season or two to play like top line center until some of these prospects can really step in there. And I'm not talking about an older established guy. I'm talking about a guy in his prime. Okay. I'm talking about a guy like, oh my God, who's the wild guy that we always talk about?
Marco Rossi.
Get me a Marco Rossi or something. Like,
there's a reason the Flyers got all these draft picks, Steve. I'm just saying.
Listen, I've heard some spicy rumors with Marco Rossi too. Like, there's some stuff coming out about, like, it seems like a good fit to me.
I do not think the Flyers are making all these draft picks in the draft. I really don't.
So. I don't think so. And I think a large part of that is they know how frustrated this fan base is, but they've also seen how great the fans can be when they're energized. They saw that Cutter Gauthier game. They saw how the Flyers fandom, the Flyers faithful showed up for that game and booed the shit out of that kid. Yeah. And it was awesome. That house was rocking. And I know the players noted it. So like, they want that. We want to be back. We want to be excited. Make it happen, Captain. A couple moves, we're already pumped about Michkov. Konechny had a great year. Couturier has shown us flashes. Like, Couturier has shown us some stuff this year that he might not be totally cooked. So there is some good stuff to be found. Tyson Forrester, Bobby Brink, Noah Cates. Like, there's good stuff on your Philadelphia Flyers. Get us a nice piece at the top, and we'll be there. If you build it, they will come.
Oh, yes. It's true.
It is very true. Guys, there's 100 other things I could get into. Like, again, I'm not even kidding. Half my sheet is not being talked about today.
I know.
I don't want to cut it off here, but it's also Friday night and the feeling's right. So I'm going to go enjoy a cold one or two and then do some homework because I'm a friggin' nerd at this point. But we're going to get going. But there's going to be a lot of podcasts and videos and stuff coming out on BSH over the next few weeks talking about this stuff. We might be back as early as Tuesday. It could be Thursday next week. We'll see what happens, but we'll be back soon. All right. And we're excited to talk about it. Like, the season just got weird, and that's where we thrive.
Oh yeah. It's fun.
Yeah.
Like, this is fun. This is a fun way. Like, there's things to look at now. You know what I mean? There's things to watch. Like, if Torts stays, we're all just like, hoping every game is a loss and that's it. Now there's things to analyze, which is kind of exciting. So, and
the style of play changes, you know.
Yeah.
It was a different game against Montreal. I was sad that I didn't catch like most.
They scored
of it
on the power play. Unbelievable.
First time in March, right?
Yes.
Lousy smart power play.
Oh, unbelievable.
It's a shame that the Tortorella needs to be the headline here, because I would love to say lousy smart power play for the episode title tonight, but what are you going to do? But yeah, guys, stick with us. We got a lot of fun stuff coming up. So subscribe, rate on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, whatever the hell you listen on. YouTube, we are crushing it with the YouTube subscribers right now. A lot of that is our buddy Kyle, who's been crushing it with the videos. So
Kyle, yeah.
If you're not subscribed on YouTube, please subscribe. We are making a big push there, and hell yeah, that's all the good stuff. And thank you to everybody who subscribed recently, and we do appreciate every one of you. If you have any feedback for us, the best place is on social media, and the best place to find me is on Blue Sky. You can find me at Flyperbole or at 𝙏𝙒𝙏𝙏𝙏𝙊𝙏 if it's for hockey purposes. Make it Flyperbole. It's Flyperbole on TikTok and Instagram as well. Quigs, where can people find you on the socials?
Ryan Quigs of the Z, thank you.
Hey, Ryan Quigs with a Z. Go find him there. All right, folks. That's it. That's all there is. There's quite a bit. It's been a big one. Yes, but we're going to sign off. Thanks so much for listening. We truly love and appreciate you all. And until next time, in the words of the great Gene Hart, good night and good hockey. Wow, 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 wow. Wow, 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 wow.